Hey there, everybody. Checking in with you this Wednesday morning. I'm taping this Wednesday morning. It'll go live on YouTube in the afternoon. Rough night, huh? Now I see, and I guess many of us see why there was so much energetic back and forth around the race between James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett. I was getting, when I did my reading on Monday, I did get the justice card. That was my significator for whether Jasmine would pull it off. And then later on that day, I used my pendulum and it was coming out really strong, like really swinging toward Tallarico. I was like, what is this about? And then yesterday I didn't tape, but I checked it again and it was looking really, really funky. And now we know why. Rigged, like rigged in front of all of our faces, right? You know, and I was watching MS Now, Rachel Maddow and crew, and you know, when the news broke that the Supreme, that Paxton running for, you know, in the race on the Republican side, you know, went and filed this motion and got the Supreme Court to rule that and reverse the order extending those voting hours in Dallas County. Like, it was just one of those out of body moments. Like, this is what they're really doing and playing in people's faces after people had stood in line for hours. We heard earlier in the day about people being turned away from the polls because there was this, you know, rigmarole around, oh no, you can't vote here, you got to go there, and people didn't know where to go, and the voting machines were going down, and websites were crashing, and all of the things. And then, you know, as the night goes on, sure enough, we're starting to see the numbers come in other counties. And it went, you know, apparently it went Tallarico's way. We got the runoff between Paxton and Cornyn. Sentiment seems to be pretty sure that given all the scandals around Paxton, and certainly, you know, the fact that he inserted himself this way in the primaries, uh, may not be looking that good for him. Cornyn definitely has the GOP war chest, financial war chest backing him. I saw something this morning around $200 million that they're prepared to spend on behalf of Cornyn, to get him back in, and Paxton's not going to have that. So if we're looking at a Cornyn Paxton, I'm sorry, Cornyn Tallarico race, the question becomes a couple of things, and I'm going to look at Jasmine in a moment. Just my heart breaks for her. Uh, but the question becomes, can Tallarico win over? Because it was a tight race no matter what, right? Can he win over that block of votes? Can he win over black voters and others? Because it wasn't just black voters voting for Jasmine. She had certainly had her share of independents and even some crossover Republicans. But can he pull that Jasmine Crockett support, Tallarico, to defeat Cornyn? That's because the you know what a lot of people, even on my channel in the comments, what a lot of you have said was, no matter who won between Tallarico and Crockett, the point is to take that seat, right? To take that seat and turn it blue. So that's what I want to look at is, will Tallarico, provided that all things stay the same, will Tallarico be able to garner the support from Crockett? Will Crockett voters go to Tallarico for the sake of turning that seat blue and defeating probably Cornyn? I have the High Priestess and Temperance at the bottom. I never ignore Major Arcana when I shuffle, and I get Major Arcana at the bottom of the deck. So we've got Temperance and we've got the High Priestess. It's not a given. There's going to be so much deep resentment over the clear rigging. Now I hear some of you already saying, is there going to be a lawsuit? Will Jasmine file a lawsuit? Will there be some repercussions over what happened to contest this? Let's look at that real quick. Spirit, will there be some sort of legal repercussions to contest? The Nine of Cups is certainly the desire to do it, and the sentiment a lot of people are saying to Crockett's team, don't take this line down. Will she file a lawsuit or something? Five of Cups. I'm not so sure that she will. And I'll tell you why, you all. Look at what happened. this was a lower court that ruled in favor of extending the voting hours, right? And then you had the Supreme Court that came in and said, no, never mind that. Not only we're going to cancel those hours, but we're going to take away any votes or separate any votes that were cast after 7 p.m. I think that's the Five of Cups. She understands, Jasmine Crockett and her team. I think they understand that should they file a lawsuit, because they'd have to do it within Texas, and say they win at a state level, does it go back to the same Supreme Court? Is that right, Spirit? Is that what I'm seeing? The Eight of Cups. Yeah, walk away. She doesn't want to. We know that she's a fighter all day long, 10 toes down. But the fact remains, if you look at how this would play out, and say it winds up back at the Supreme Court, then what happens? So I'm not so sure. Again, with tarot or any divination method, it responds to the energy in the moment or the likelihood of how things are going. So this could change, but I got to pay attention to what we're seeing. Again, that Nine of Cups, the desire for her to do it, and she's being urged, this was clearly wrong. We all saw this play out in real time, that this thing got rigged. But Five of Cups with the Eight of Cups, I'm not sure that, the likelihood of her being able to prevail. And then also I'm hearing Spirit saying, reminding that that's going to cause even more dissension within the Democratic ranks, and perhaps slowing down the momentum, while you got Cornyn over here. Presumably Cornyn, he's still got to do the runoff in May, but presumably Cornyn will defeat Paxton while they're gaining their momentum. So I'm not so sure that we're going to see that. Spirit. Let's get back to Temperance and the High Priestess. Whether Tallarico is going to be able to bring people his way. Will there be a coalescing of voters, the lovers? I think so, you all. That's coming together. I think the bottom line is, even though there's so much anger and disappointment and rage, even I just heard, around what we saw happen, there will be a unification to defeat Cornyn. That along those lines, there's going to be a unification to defeat Cornyn in the election in November. Voters are going to solidify around Tallarico. Will Tallarico get it together? Because he made some missteps. He made some missteps during the primaries, racially and otherwise. And we have the Magician. Yeah, he's going to get a lot of support around helping him understand where he could have improved, where he's going to have to improve in order to win the votes over, win all the Democratic supporters of Crockett, Democratic, Independent, Republican, etc. Those who cross over Republicans. So yes, the Magician is creation and putting the components together. He's going to mount a really solid campaign. And I think, again, because the stakes are so high and overall people are going to want to see Cornyn get defeated, they will rally around Tallarico. Now, the other thing that I wanted to look at is, Jasmine Crockett had to give up her seat in the House in order to launch this bid for the Senate. So technically, she's gone as of January 2027, right? But I just don't think that she's just too strong, too talented, too determined, too resilient to just completely walk away. That Five of Cups and Eight of Cups notwithstanding. Will we see Jasmine Crockett back in D.C., Spirit? Will she make a return to D.C.? Perhaps as part of a cabinet when the Democrats take over. When the Democrats take over and they get the White House back, will we see Jasmine Crockett back in D.C.? Will she be back in some capacity? Attorney General, something along those lines. We have the Three of Swords. Page of Cups, it's going to take there's a healing process. Um, because she spent a lot of political capital to say, she was willing to take the risk and walk away from her seat in the House to run for Senate. The Five of Swords. There's so much confusion around what this means for her. And again, that I keep hearing Spirit keeps saying she spent a lot of political capital. But will she, she had the endorsement of Kamala Harris. There was just so much momentum behind her. Will she come back to DC, Spirit? In some capacity, some form, some capacity. Nine of Pentacles, I like that. This feels like time to rebuild and to regroup. That Three of Swords. But I don't think we've seen the last of her. She just has too much to offer. Will she, let me back up a second. Spirit, will she focus on rising within the Texas government? Like governor, attorney general, something within Texas. Is she going to turn her focus to Texas? The Moon. That's her sentiment, I think, in relation to what Paxton did. Her sentiment seems to be running more toward wanting to do something in the state of Texas. Nine of Wands, being determined, persevering. Card fell. Being determined and persevering, resilient, coming back. That fire in her belly, wanting to fight. So what I'm getting essentially is she's not going to just go away. The Two of Swords is she's conflicted and she has to make a decision. She knows that, come on, her desire was to grow her career in DC, in Congress, right? That was her path forward. That was her desired path forward. But I think with that Moon coming, she is considering what would be her most solid path forward. And there's the King of Cups. There's someone supporting her, rallying behind her, advising her. Is this on the state level, Spirit? Is someone advising her to focus her energies on the state? There's the Tower. Break it. Yes, I think she's going to go full horse for something, at least in the short term. She may get called. Whoever takes over in 28, she may get called by them, and she may be looking at an appointment. But in the meantime, the Tower is she's gonna come back. That Mars energy, she's gonna come back determined, especially where Kim Paxton is concerned. She's gonna come back determined to dismantle the very system that she openly said last night. We see what just happened here. And there's the Seven of Wands. Stand your ground. Jasmine Crockett is coming back. It could very well be that in the short term she's going to do it within the state of Texas, and then long term, as she rebuilds, her platform and regroups from this. That Three of Swords is nothing to play with. That Eight of Cups is nothing to play with. This was horrible. It would have been a different scenario had Tallarico just won outright, and then it is what it is. But to have it snatched from you that way, wow. Now, that said as well, Spirit is reminding me, and I had a note to bring this up. So we know now that Dallas County was a playbook for what they're going to plan to do in the midterms across the board, right? If you can't get the SAVE Act and go at people in terms of voter ID as a means of voter suppression. So, okay, let's confuse them around where they can vote, delay the vote then, and cut it off at a certain hour. So now, oh, well, sorry you didn't get here soon enough. Now your vote just may not, or we're going to separate the votes to do what with them, right? Spirit, are we going to see a replication of this? Of what was done in Dallas, around Dallas County. Are we going to see that, a replication of that in other predominantly red states in November? Is that going to be, is that a dog whistle essentially for, hey, here's another way that you can go about it? Will we see that? The King of Wands, there will be those who call for it. There's some discussion around, hey, catch fire. This worked. Maybe we can do it here too. But is there going to be also Page of Pentacles? And there's going to be something to slow that down. Earth puts out fire. I just saw like a fire, and then you take earth to quench it. This is so now election officials in various states see the playbook. So the idea of getting out information ahead of time, why weren't voters alerted? Okay, now that this change has been made, countywide voting at polls is no longer in effect. Here's where you should vote. Are we going to see a demand by election officials to give clearer directions in advance of the midterms, where people are supposed to vote, the hours they can vote, etc.? The Wheel of Fortune. I'm so glad to see that here. That's going to be the karmic consequence of what happened here, right? The outright steal, talk about steal, the outright steal of what happened, what we saw play out. The karma card, Wheel of Fortune, they're onto it. They're onto it. And there will be steps taken to make sure that voters are notified well in advance. And I'm also hearing then what this is going to do is drive early voting. Instead of waiting till the day of, we see how catastrophic that can turn out to be. Will we see a rise in early voting? Spirit, are we going to see a rise for the midterms then, based on what we saw happen here? Will there be a rise in early voting? Will there be a surge? I just heard. Will there be a surge in early voting in November across the nation in these races? Will there be a surge in early voting? Four of Swords, the need for clarity. I'm not going to ignore the Magician. Yes. And I'm being drawn to go ahead, even though it's not a major arcana, Two of Wands, because that is the card of being focused forward, developing a plan and moving on that plan in the beginning stages of doing so. So that's, states have definitely taken notice. Certainly Democratic officials across the board, the the Democratic National Committee certainly, but within that, going to the various states and saying, okay, we saw how this played out. This cannot happen again. And I think that's why we got that Magician energy and the clarity. Let's regroup. Let's look at what the requirements are in various counties, those that offer county-wide polls available, or who are saying you have to vote at a specific precinct. That's that Four of Swords. Let's get clear. Let's make sure that people understand. Magician ruled by Mercury, communications. Let's make sure so that we have a clear plan going forward. So don't lose hope, you all. I know this was one for the books. This wasn't even. I saw some things, and there's the Empress. I love it. Mwah. I'm so glad that we see her, because this is collectively, nationwide, people having more information going forward, knowing what to look for, and knowing that now it's not even just about showing up and people hassling you about your ID. This is last minute. You show up and they tell you, oops, you can't vote here anymore, and we're not even sure where to tell you to go vote. You got to go figure that out for yourselves. That's what's going to get handled. There won't be a replay of this. There may be an attempt at it, but now the playbook has been shown. People can point to the page, to the chapter in the playbook for voter suppression and go, aha, this is it. So here's what we need to do to counter that. All right. Second thing I wanted to look at, there is definitely a split happening between, and we've seen it come in different forms over the last several months, between Trump, Vance, and Rubio, right? him Trump trying to play Rubio and Vance off of each other to decide which of them, whether they would be a combined ticket in 28. But those are clearly the front runners that the GOP is circling around to try and go in 2028, go for the Oval in 2028. Now Vance all of a sudden lips zipped, haven't heard a whole lot in the wake of Iran, right? The war in Iran. Rubio, meanwhile, for entertainment purposes only, like, what's up? What's up with the like manic, right? Now you know a lot of people that narco Rubio, a lot of people you get the drift, right? Some interesting people surmising some interesting things around him and around his energy and his behavior. But the bottom line is he's out there babbling, gibberish, if you want to call it that, to try and justify. I'm sorry, I hear fire trucks outside if you're hearing some interference. But Vance, meanwhile, is like, because Vance was, before they launched the strikes, Vance was out saying, don't worry about a thing. If this happens, it's just going to be a quick airstrike thing. We're not going to really get heavily involved. And we see things playing out. It's going to be anything but. Now they're talking boots on the ground, right? 50,000 U.S. troops so far committed to this. Come on. All right. But Vance hasn't said a word. I want to know, Spirit, what is the real deal between Trump and Vance? Is Vance being sidelined? Is he going into preservation mode because he knows this is a losing proposition? This is Bush 2.0, but worse, right? The Hierophant. He's got his eye on and the Chariot. And the Wheel of Fortune. Wow, and the Ace of Pentacles. I don't ignore my aces either. All right, we got our answer. Didn't even have to do a lot of flipping for it, you all. Vance has got his eye on 2028. He realizes this is a losing proposition, and Trump and company are going to come away with a whole lot of mud on their faces and a whole lot of debt. That's not only financial debt, but lives lost, people being lost. So Chariot, he's got his eye focused again on running in 2028. The Wheel of Fortune, he recognizes that he's trying to play time out, play it safe and play time out. He can't afford, Vance I'm talking about, he can't afford to openly defy or dispute what the White House is doing, but he's focused on his bid for 2028 and his chances and his electability. So that's it. And we got our Ace of Pentacles. I don't ignore my aces because, as many of you who are with me know, I see my aces as a yes, Spirit confirming that. So Vance is going to be really, really careful, but that does cause a split with Trump. Because Trump, of course, wants Vance to do essentially what Rubio is doing, which is toe the line, buy the line, buy it, or try to sell the American public whatever needs to be, sold to get what they want, to get the continued support, especially among the MAGA base, which is also fracturing. Whoop, and the devil just flipped. That's it. To bind the people, Rubio is bound. Rubio is in this devil energy right now, meaning not calling him a devil. Gotta watch my words. I'm saying the devil is about energy that can be tempting because you feel like you are getting what you want. It is the allure. It is the desire. It is the greed for power. And that's what Rubio is caught in the thick of right now. Will we see Trump come out then and essentially begin to position Rubio over Vance? Are we going to see Nine of Pentacles, Page of Cups, Page of Swords? He's not decided. And the Six of Pentacles, opportunistic at all times. He's going to weeble wobble the two of them, continue to play the two of them off of one another. He's being advised, Trump is being advised not to go too far in Rubio's corner because Vance is still promising, and Vance does have support still within certain circles. So he's going to hedge his bets for right now, and I think that's also why we got these pages. The do I want to take the risk? Pages being that sort of new opportunistic energy in swords and cups. So gauging the MAGA base's emotional reaction to Vance versus Rubio, and then continuing to sort of play the two of them off of one another. With the Nine of Pentacles, the money, I will front this, like I will throw the support, because they've got, with all this financial shenanigans they've been doing, the GOP has a lot of money at its disposal. So there, he's just going to essentially continue to play the two of them off one another. But Vance is definitely splitting from him in terms of, and he sees it. Trump sees that because he's in self-preservation mode. Both of them are really, but Vance is looking more towards the future, and he doesn't want the outcome of what will happen here in regards to this unbelievable catastrophe. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want to have to say and take ownership of that and admit, well, this is the role that I played in that. He's being really cagey about it. All right. I want to move on, you all, to another thing that we're seeing is around the potential for Iranian sleeper cells in the U.S. This is not to cause alarm, but it is a very interesting development that right before the strikes, we've heard that Cash App Patel, as many people say, he fired this whole quadrant of really experienced FBI agents who specialized in Iranian situations, right? Why do that, knowing that that could increase the potential and the risk of sleeper cells here in the U.S.? Is there a concerted effort to perhaps create something that happens on U.S. soil to therefore interrupt the midterms? You follow me? Right? We saw that, or I saw, maybe many of you did as well, that there was all of this action around Trump Tower. I'll call it that. Trump Tower in Manhattan, because there was the idea that, we might see something happen there if they could, whoever's here, if they've got some sleeper cells here, could there be something that happens on U.S. soil? And would it be at a place like a Trump Tower, a la another sort of 9/11 situation, Spirit? And just the fact that he let the very people in the FBI, not CIA, so this ain't international, FBI, domestic, was the fact that he was, and he didn't just jump up and decide to do that on his own. He's not a Patel. He's not that forward thinking. He's not that strategic. This was an order that he was given to do so. Spirit, are we going to see something around sleeper cells in the U.S. as a result of this? Was this done to almost create a scenario? Death, rebirth. Ten of Pentacles. King of Swords. Three of Cups. Who's this King of Swords? Ten of Cups. This is someone. This is someone who comes out and pretends to speak on behalf of the American people. Is this somebody sounding the alarm about sleeper cells? Yes. Okay, Temperance. Yes. So somebody's going to come out and start sounding the alarm about the correlation between the timing of releasing these FBI agents whose specialty was Iran or is Iran, and to identify the increasing risks of death to people. And this is the second part of my question I knew I was going to have to go into is financial markets. Ten of Pentacles. Three of Cups feels like something around a holiday. Spirit, is this something around the 250th anniversary of the U.S.? Something around July? Is there some risks or energy around July? Four of Wands, celebration. There's some energy because they would do it if something is going to happen on U.S. soil. They would do it, the prime time, symbolically, around the 250th. Six of Swords. So this is some time in the future. And I think this is around, symbolically, perhaps around July. Now, more so even perhaps than a physical retaliation like bombing or something like that. Please, God, no. Please protect. Like, let's all just take a collective breath. And it's not about panic, right? Faith over fear. I just did a short video on that yesterday, and I live by that. But I'm also a realist. I'm also, the journalist in me is like, let's look at what it is. There is no accident, and we would be naive to think that all of the, 12 agents I heard or read, 12 agents, really experienced agents that were let go, whose specialty was this very thing. Okay. More so, yesterday, we understand, I don't know if it's still going on today, the Federal Reserve was having delays in ACH payments. So like things like direct deposit, etc. There are some alarms that we're hearing a little bit around banking, and people are being advised to, like, to the extent that you have it, keep some cash on hand, because there could be some I don't know if I want to say cyber attack, but I just did. Cyber attacks or something around hiccups in the banking system. We know what happened with things like Verizon not too long ago, and there have been a lot of spiritualists and astrologers and others who have said that was just the beginning of what we could see play out again. Interruptions in digital and electronic means of communication, but also in this instance, I'm looking at banking specifically. Spirit, are we going to see something that disrupts the economy or people's ability to access their money? Will there be something around banking that people, whoever sees this, the Magician, something being created to disrupt? And the Hierophant, disrupt banking systems. Yeah, don't panic, but just be careful. Watch your money, and to the extent that you need to have a certain something set aside, or start setting aside money, cash money, to have available. I'm aware, and there's the Five of Swords. So I don't think that this is something to think about, is what Spirit is saying. This is something to be aware of and to think about and prepare for, not panic. I don't think that it's imminent, but the fact that the Fed Reserve, this happened, Nine of Cups, there's growing likelihood of there being interruptions. And again, it could just be delays. It could be, temporary delays, like in communications, what we saw with Verizon when it went down not long ago. Even like a day later, it comes back. So I'm not seeing where people are necessarily losing money or something that nefarious, but just interruptions and relying on, especially for people who work and or Social Security, and you're relying on direct deposits. That's what was interrupted, the ACH system in the Fed Reserve yesterday. The King of Swords, This could be the Fed Reserve and the Four of Swords. So we're going to hear more about this. I'm wondering if this is Powell or someone within banking. Eight of Wands. We're definitely going to hear more about that. There will be messaging around that. I don't know if this is Besant. It could be Besant, Chariot. Yeah, so you may see the government, and that also might be why we had the Hierophant come up. You may see government begin to address this in some way, or to try and urge. They would love to see the Fed Reserve look bad and be chaotic. That would work to their advantage. But the bottom line is, aside from those machinations by Besant et al. In the White House, the bottom line, the message that I'm getting from Spirit for you all is just be aware, pay attention to what's happening in the banking systems, and to the extent that you can, put something away for yourselves in the case of an emergency. This would be a really good time to do it. All right, you all. Look, I gotta push my chin up today. I gotta push it up today, man. Okay, but we're gonna do it. Chin up and our shoulders back, right? And remembering there is a higher force, no matter what. There are higher forces at work, and the ground beneath us. We had that Empress come up earlier. The earth, and us supporting one another. That is not going to stop. The momentum will not be stopped. It's just the stakes continue to grow higher and higher. But the playbook is also wide open. Chapter and verse, they're showing, it's not being done in secret. It's being done in broad daylight. Therefore, it's incumbent upon those who can resist and be prepared for that and take measures to stop it. And to mitigate it. That's what's at stake right now. So take really good care of yourselves. I am going to be traveling on Friday, so I will try and check in with you from wherever I'm at. But just know that my schedule is going to be for Friday might be a little up in the air. Take a breath. All right, we're gonna get through this. Right? We're gonna get through this. Light always overtakes darkness. Might take a minute, but it will overtake no matter what. That's just universal law, period. All right. Thank you all so much for your support. I love the hypes. I love the likes, the comments, everything that keeps the channel going. I appreciate it more than I can tell you. Members, we will meet our Zoom will be this Sunday at 4:00 Eastern. Adjust for your time zone. So I guess that's 1 Pacific, etc., etc. I'll try and remember to do a post beforehand, but if you see this video, please do. And I think for this meeting on Sunday, I will take your questions. A lot of times I prepare material. I'll do readings that I'm inspired to do by Spirit, but I'm feeling like a lot of you members need to be heard or have questions or just want to engage with me, and that's with your questions versus me coming prepared to do a teaching or whatever. So I think I'm going to open the floor and just take your questions on Saturday, political, personal, otherwise, but I want to hear from you and I want to address your concerns. That's part of my offering to you as members. All right. So this Sunday, March 8th, 4:00 Eastern. The Zoom link is always the same. If you are a new member, please email me at touchbytarot@gmail.com. Give me your user ID on YouTube so I can verify that you're a member, and I'll send you the Zoom link. I keep those private always. All right. Take good care, and I'll talk to you real soon.